You don't deny hypergamy exists. You just deny that it manifests. The reason why that's wrong is because hypergamy is not a comparison of men to women. It is a comparison of men to men. And when you compare men to other men, like you said before, would you want someone who's taller or better? Of course you would. But the difference, what the point I'm trying to make is, it's not that they're settling because hypergamy isn't a thing. They're settling because they have no choice. Because this was an argument that you had before about hypergamy, and I don't want to state what you're saying incorrectly. You believe hypergamy exists, but it doesn't manifest in the dating scene, or it manifests less the further away we get from like a survival scenario.
So, okay, the official definition of hyper. So it's weird because Fresh and Fit uses this. Yeah, they use some retard, like, you like men taller than you, you're hypergamous. Like, that's not what hypergamy is. They're stupid. It's like the status and the income thing that is starting to shift as time goes on. And also I would say that assorted mating, or like mating people across, has been what's happening, and it's still happening across cultures for a very long time. So that's my argument. So people who use like the dating app argument, oh my God, these people are getting all the swipes, or these people are doing this, or this idea of this rich guy going on and dating this CVS worker. It's not happening on like any scale, much less the scale that the red pillars pretend it is. Yes, it's more likely for a man to do it, but what's most likely is that he's just going to marry across.
So just so we're clear, again, you believe hypergamy exists. You just don't think it manifests in the way.
Does everybody want someone better than them?
Yes.
Probably, but men do too.
Also, you had a debate. It's like, are men hypergamous? The men would be hypoandrous.
Yeah.
And you're saying women are homogamous. That's what the word would be. It would be dating across.
Well, men are like everyone. Yes, if you can land someone way more attractive than you, way sexier than you, way more educated than you, both sides, you probably would want that.
I don't think the argument was ever that men aren't hypergamous. Men are, clearly, but it's just to the same extent, like when they are hypergamous, they're not replacing their wives. They may cheat, but they're not replacing their wives. I think that's what the argument was. Of course, men wanting more or wanting better, of course, like I wouldn't disagree with that. But the issue is when we go back to the thing we're talking about before, because I've had this discussion with Destiny before, and he keeps talking about the barista doesn't date the billionaire.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The barista doesn't date the billionaire. That's partially because there's way more baristas than billionaires. That has something to do with economics. But the other part is unmarried, low income, and unemployed or part-time employed men were more likely to have no sex within the past year than those with married or had higher income or had jobs. That is a manifestation of hypergamy in the real dating world. If you have lower income, you're more likely to not have sex. That is, but what it is, it's not hypergamy on the high end. I don't care about the guy who has a 50 body count. It's the guy at the low end with a 0 who's being discluded from the dating pool. Even Mack and Murphy says the bottom third of men are not allowed or not going to be able to participate in short-term mating. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you're saying that the bottom 30% of men in income are not?
No. I'm sorry. So we can debate about the sexless men thing. And even I was listening to William Costello, and he was like, that's not really a good indicator about whether or not a man is good with women, because you have one guy who's married and had sex with his wife 400 times in a year and another guy who had sex one time in a year.
Yeah.
And they're both going to report the same thing. I'm a performance coach. The guys at the top are doing fine. They don't need my help. It's the guys at the bottom that I'm trying to help. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, when we talk about should you be watching pornography, could that help you from this getting out of this sexless range? Again, remember the thing I talked to you about. When you show non-contextualized images of attractive women to men, they find their partner to be lacking. You do the same thing to women. If a woman is going to left swipe 600 times on men to go on one date, she starts in her mind to believe she's better than these men, or she could get some or maybe even most of these men to commit to her when she could not. 200 years ago, you and I would live in a tribe of a village of 150 people.
Yeah.
The hottest person we'd ever seen is the hottest person in our village.
Yeah.
But what happens is, if I'm Dan Bilzerian or if I'm stalker at Walmart, I see the same contextual images of women on social media.
Okay.
So my belief about what women should look like is the same. Even though Dan can get them and this guy can't get them, he still sees the same thing, which screws up his ability to discern what he can and cannot get. Pornography screws up for men, but for women, I feel like, and I have seen data on this, that dating apps, there's one of the guys who creates one of the dating apps, he's coming on my show and he was like, it's really bad what it does to women because it causes them to start to believe that they can just pass through all these men who some of them wouldn't commit. And then when they pick,
but they're not having sex with, like, the men that they're picking, they're not even having sex
regardless,
with.
Again, we're not talking about those guys at the top.
So they're just sitting at home and not doing.
So that's exactly what women are reporting. They're saying they're going on these dating apps for attention. A lot of them are saying that, and they're not going on dates at all. I've said this before. Dating apps and social media did not help more men get laid. It helped a few men at the top get a little bit laid a little bit more, and it helped most men get like absolutely decimated when it comes to that. And I'm telling you this anecdotally, because I've been at the Playboy Mansion in Bilzerian's house when he's having a party, and it's 17 girls for every guy, and these girls have boyfriends. I'm aware of what I'm seeing, but also statistically,
do you think that's like a normal setting?
No, of course not. No, but whenever we take data points, I'm going to take the extreme and then work my way down.
Okay.
So when we talk about the extreme, when we look at dating apps, if 80% of men are deemed to be unattractive, 20% of men are deemed to be attractive, and only 4.5% of men are so attractive that women initiate and go after them, regardless of if those men at those top 4.5% of men are having 8% more sexual partners or how many more, the men at the bottom are suffering because of the comparison to the men at the top.
Well, you're saying, okay, we have this data and this is the reason, you're just saying that's
no. But when we have men, they right swipe 5% of the time and women right swipe 50%.
Because you could say like, oh yeah, they're swiping on these 20% of men. How do you know that this is the reason that they're also less likely? Because the things that determine how likely you are to mate are like being better educated, these kinds of things. Okay. Is that just that doesn't go in with your but we're all just watching these men and now we're just sitting at home not anybody apparently.
I'm not saying you're not anyone.
Yeah.
It's the delta between who you were before and after Tinder. What I'm saying is, when you look at the numbers, there's a group of guys. I was reading some study where it was like the top 5% of men had like 35 sexual partners, and that had gone from 35 to 60. But like there's a larger group of men at the bottom who are having no sexual partners. Meaning like hypergamy does exist. It is pushing things to the right. Now, not to the fact 20% of men having 80% of the women. No one said that. I don't know who
not you, but
but anyone who said that, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. That's obviously not true. When we're going through the concept of hypergamy, the point I was trying to make is that on the low end, there's women who are not selecting for men because they make less money, which is hypergamy. And on the high end, you're like, well, the barista's not dating the billionaire. It goes back to a 2016 essay from Dr. David Buss, and then later on, the book of Boys and Men by Richard Reeves, where he goes off and he describes as women, the Oxford definition for hypergamy has nothing to do with height, you're correct. Mm-hmm. But in that definition, they talk specifically about socioeconomic. So education and income, right? As women become more educated and then have more income, the pool of men that they can choose from. Remember, Rihanna's worth $100 million and dating a billionaire. The pool of men that they get to choose from becomes less and less. Those women are competing with other women who are as educated as them, and women who are not as educated with them for those men who make more money and are more educated than them. Because of that, the reason why hypergamy does not manifest at the highest levels is a function of economics. Going back to the original thing I said, you don't deny hypergamy exists, you just deny that it manifests. So let's get one thing straight, because I know there's a clip that Myron said that went viral or wherever, where he goes, you want a man who's stronger than you and smarter than you and makes more money than you, etc. That is not a definition of hypergamy. I agree with you. Some of it is, but some of it isn't. Mm-hmm. The reason why that's wrong is because hypergamy is not a comparison of men to women. It is a comparison of men to men. Mm-hmm. And that has been my whole point. On dating apps, it is a comparison of men to men. When you choose men who do not have sex with that have a lower income, that is a comparison of men to men. Mm-hmm. And when you compare men to other men, like you said before, would you want someone who's taller or better? Of course you would. But the difference, the point I'm trying to make is, it's not that they're settling because hypergamy isn't a thing. They're settling because they have no choice, because 60% of college graduates are women and they're making more money. They don't have a choice. Okay,
so all women really care about and all people care about is having resources, right? So now that women have their own resources, this is something they care about less. If in that same book of Boys and Men, Richard talked about how there's that dating app study with Corinne Lowe, where they're putting people's faces and they're putting women's faces, and when they make more money, men are rating them as more attractive. People want resources.
You're the alpha male in the relationship. Farah, what do you think about this? I don't want to keep you out of this.
It just sounds like there isn't a problem. Like, you're saying hypergamy only manifests in short-term dating, but it sounds like...
Oh, no, it wasn't a problem. The point was whether or not it exists. Because here's the issue. At some point, I'm not interested in a socioeconomic reform of the whole world. We're not going back to church, all of us together in an agrarian society where we get in arranged marriages. We're not going back there. Mm-hmm. Not going away, and only not going away. I need to teach men how to deal with the world they're actually in. And in dealing in the world they're actually in, is it better for them to be below 14% body fat than above? The answer is yes. And that is because, and if I sit there and try to act like it's not, and basically what they need to do instead is just like believe in themselves, clench their butt, gnash their teeth, and read the secret, if I tell them that instead, I'm giving them bad advice. At some point, I need to give them advice. None of us have perfect advice. We're talking about surveys where people are announcing themselves anonymously. We don't know what the truth is, but the reality of the situation is at some point, we need to take all these data points.
Well, we know what the truth
is
when it comes to actual meeting, just not. So what people say they want, I like to look at what they're actually doing.
For sure.
That's why
but my explanation for why they're doing that, why women are saying, I want a guy who's 6'3" and makes $500,000 a year, and yet are dating the guy who makes $70,000 a year and is 5'10", is because that's all that's left.
Okay,
that's
the men who are saying, I want a woman with a really flat stomach and I want her to have double D's, he's settling too for his bum ass.
You are never going to have an argument against male hypergamy or male hypoandry.
Okay,
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I don't know why anyone in Red Pill would even oppose that idea. Of course we want hotter girls. Nobody would ever say that. But going back to my original point, the reason why the comparison thing happened is because me being bigger and stronger than you actually helps in your survival. Mm-hmm. But you being bigger and stronger than me doesn't aid in mine. Yeah. But what we talked about before, double D tits and stuff like that, that does aid in my replication.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Everybody wants the best scenario
Correct.
for themselves, but I'm saying that as women are starting to, so would you say men are hypergamous now because they're broke looking at these photos and saying that women who make more money are more attractive? Because they are doing that.
I'm not saying they aren't. I'm saying I don't know that that's them. I don't have guys. I don't hear a guy hypoandrous.
Yeah, but you never see, like at my law firm and stuff, there wasn't women gathering around like, oh my God, I just want a rich guy. Like we're all there making money. Like why would we sit there around like, oh, it just sucks. I just want a rich guy to make. Like, yeah, you're going to find that in bottle service girls and like your bikini competitions, but you're not going to.
It's not them sitting around the water cooler saying, I want a rich guy. But people do, like you said, want people with more resources. Mm-hmm. My issue was not that it was a problem. Hypergamy is an evolutionary adaptation. My issue was that it's real. And if it is real, then there needs to be some mechanism by which men can help other men improve.
Yeah, but this is the difference. For a long time, the culture was that women don't work, women sit at home, blah, blah, blah. So obviously the male room is going to be, how do we make more money? And for a long time, for women to get resources, it was like, how can I find a guy who makes money, because she couldn't do it themselves. And as soon as it started changing, you are seeing that change manifest in society. Yeah. So to me, it's not that it's just, there may be, for a long time, this is how culture was set up, but as soon as culture is shifting, we're seeing that shift. So that shift should be part of the equation. Yes, everyone should make more money. If you're talking to girls and you're not teaching them how to make more money, you are shooting them in the foot too.
We're just going two different ways to get to the same jump shot.
Everyone should try to make more money.
I agree with what you're saying. My point is that it is real, and that we should. You can't act. If I don't believe in gravity and I jump off a balcony, I'm still dead. Mm-hmm. And if you don't believe in hypergamy and you're a man, and there's a lot of people telling you to not believe in that, then what happens is you don't go to the gym. You don't read more books. You don't scale your business. You don't eat better. You don't get sunlight.
So you're saying guys don't go to the gym because no one told them that girls like guys who go to the gym?
No, guys don't often will give up. You have seen studies where men are giving up on the dating market, but it's like they're giving up. Women. They're giving up in part because black pillars are telling them it's only your looks.
Yeah. I disagree with that.
Okay, so do I. I definitely agree with it too. I wouldn't have a performance coaching program if I didn't. So they're saying it's only your looks. So if I tell you it's only your looks, then why am I going to read and go to the gym?